We have different levels of our consciousness. Our consciousness has been broken into many different levels and fragmented into many different pieces in this experience of being born, of being incarnated as a human being. In the general spiritual community, most people are familiar with the idea of we have a mental consciousness, and that makes sense to them. They're also familiar with the idea we have an emotional consciousness, and the emotional consciousness is a little bit more deep, a little more anchored, a little thicker. It's fluid like water, whereas the mental consciousness is light like air. And then they're aware of they have an etheric consciousness, which is even lighter than the mental. So it's a common understanding that we have these different layers of our consciousness that function one on top of the other. What hasn't been fully understood or presented yet is the truth about the kinetic consciousness. So what is the kinetic consciousness? The kinetic consciousness is the portion of your multidimensional being which is focused or dedicated to providing locomotion, movement, for whatever body you currently find yourself in. So while you're in the physical body, your kinetic consciousness is inseparably anchored like a rock, like very strong to the nervous system of the human body, in particular, the motor nerves of the nervous system. Your kinetic consciousness is locked tight inside of there, so much so that you don't even know that you have one. Science is of yet unaware for the most part. I think there are some branches of science that have figured this out and are studying it, but that it's the spirit that moves the body. They've discovered that electricity flows between the neurons in the brain and the motor nerves and hits the muscles and causes the contractions. But what causes that to happen in the first place? What actually triggers that biochemical response in the brain that triggers these movements? And that is the spirit. The spirit is consciousness that expresses itself as radiant spiritual energy. And while you're in the physical body, it's locked tight within the nervous system, so tight that you don't even know that you have one. You don't even know that you have a spirit until one day you begin to wake up to higher level sensations and vibrations, until one day you begin to project your consciousness in and out of the body, until one day you begin to ground your full presence into the body to where your consciousness can swell or expand beyond the nervous system and begin to feel itself as it really is, as consciousness that expresses itself as radiant spiritual energy. So as consciousness, we can fuse with anything. When you're out of your body, you can decide that you want to become that table. You just flow right into it and your spirit conforms to the shape of the table. You can become the ground that you're standing on. You can become the air that you're breathing. You can shapeshift into a bird and fly away. And then as you approach an ocean, you can form yourself into a dolphin and fall and go swim through the ocean. So spirit is limitless in its ability to change shape and form and vibration and color. And it's also limitless in its ability to fuse itself or to be one with anything that exists already. And this includes bodies and inanimate objects. So there's rules and etiquette that govern the possessing of bodies that needs to be taken into consideration, but that's a topic for a different time. But there are righteous levels of using spirit's gift to be one with bodies. There are consciousness that are assigned roles of doing this for inspiring human beings. And every human being that is a part of planet Earth has been assigned stewardship over the animal consciousness. And this hasn't been understood correctly, not fully, but it will one day soon. But everybody's seen the movie Avatar and was pretty amazing how they interacted with the animals. Well, one day humans will interact like that with the animal kingdom. And not only will we be able to be one with animals, but we will be able to experience ourselves as literally being inside of the bodies of any animal on earth and experiencing through their senses. And while we're sharing with them in overlap like that, they benefit from the experience and we benefit from the experience. But long story short, consciousness is free flowing, and currently our kinetic consciousness is stuck within the nervous system of the human body. Every night when you fall asleep, you go through a process that is scientifically known as sleep paralysis. During sleep paralysis, as your consciousness begins to black out and flow down what I call the consciousness tunnel, when you begin to nod off and go to sleep, there's a magical moment where your nervous system notices that you are falling asleep and paralyzes itself. So it turns off the electrical connection to the rest of your body, so that your spirit can be free, so that you can finally leave the body and explore other dimensions. And also so that as you do this exploration, that you're not sleepwalking, that your body's not walking around bashing into things and hurting people and getting into all sorts of trouble. So those of you that have mastered or are mastering the out-of-body experience, you know this, that as you lay down and you go into theta brainwaves, that your body starts to get numb, and all of a sudden you can start to feel your spirit that is inside of your body. And then when you begin to make motions, mental motions that would normally move your body, your spirit disconnects and your spirit begins to move instead. This is your kinetic consciousness. And normally it's locked firmly inside of the nervous system of the human body. The important thing to understand is that it is the greatest expression of your consciousness, of all the different levels of spirit, from lighter to mental to emotional to kinetic. The kinetic is the strongest, the most deepest, the most anchored, the most powerful by far of all of them. Why? Because it takes more effort, more energy, more focus. There's nothing that you will ever do with energy, with your consciousness, with your form, that is going to be more difficult than providing locomotion for the body, for the vehicle that you currently find yourself in. Unless, of course, you're trying to do telekinesis with something that happens to be heavier than your physical frame. That would be like a rare exception. But basically, it's the most intensive requirement on your spiritual energy of any activity that you will ever do. So, for us to spiritualize our kinetic consciousness is what this is all about. And this is a huge fruit. This is the pathway to being in a spiritual experience constantly, because there's nothing that keeps you more anchored to the physical body than your kinetic consciousness, because it's so locked so securely into the nervous system.